It's the Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White, and it's episode 404. Welcome to the week of 4 August 2024. We've got fake IDs, Storm Bamboo, uBlock, Rhysida, Snake, Delta, TikTok, Josh Marpet, and more on this edition of the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News. ThreatLocker implements a least privileged approach to cybersecurity, blocking every executable unless specifically authorized by your team. This methodology mitigates ransomware, supply chain attacks, zero-day exploits, and ensures 24/7, 365.25 protection for your organization. To learn more about how ThreatLocker can help prevent known and unknown threats in your digital environment, safeguard your data and operations from threat actors, and align your organization with respected compliance frameworks, visit securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker.
Created in 2005 and hosted by security industry veterans, Paul's Security Weekly is your source for in-depth coverage of the latest vulnerabilities, exploits, and security research. Our weekly security news discussion dives deep into the security issues we face today and potential solutions in a fun and lively atmosphere. Each week, we bring on guests from the security community to learn about their journey and discuss topics relevant to their work and research. You can also subscribe to our show by visiting securityweekly.com/subscribe or look for Paul's Security Weekly in your favorite podcast catcher. We've recorded a ton of content over the years, so we created Spotify playlists featuring some of our favorite episodes, including interviews with Marcus Random, John McAfee, and Chris Roberts, to name a few. You can find them at securityweekly.com/starter packs.
All right, it's the Security Weekly News from exile on the island of Elba. I'm Doug White, and welcome to the show. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and leave a comment on your favorite platform, or we'll have to come looking for you. And Josh is pretty tough. I just usually stand behind him while he takes care of business. Yeah, so, you know. With the suck knobs turned all the way up, yeah. That's what we were talking. If you could only hear what we were talking about before you got to tune in, but I know you'd like that too, but then we'd all be in jail. All right. Storm Bamboo, which is also called Evasive Panda, Daggerfly, and Storm Cloud. We got to get this naming thing under control. It's like pretty soon I spend 5 minutes reading all the names of things. But Storm Bamboo is a group that's been around a long time. They've been active since 2012. They're based in China. They probably work for the Chinese government, but who knows about all that stuff. They typically target East Asian countries and Nigeria. Like, let's just throw a random one in there, although, Nigeria. Well, on Friday, Velexity said that the group had exploited insecure HTTP software and update mechanisms that did not validate digital signatures to deploy malware payloads on Windows and Mac OS. So I basically, it seems like to me what's going on here is that they look for update availability. And as you probably are very familiar, a lot of apps update, all the time, Chrome and so forth are constantly phoning home and checking to see if updates are available. And what they were doing is when there's an update available, instead of installing a legitimate update, they use these digital signature problems, and that allows them to install malware, including Macma and PocoStick, which are both pretty well-known and well-established malware families. So basically the way they did this was they intercepted and modded DNS requests, and they replaced these DNS requests, the information in these packets, with their own IP addresses. So, when you type something in or an update is requested, it sends out a DNS request first, and that traffic goes somewhere and comes back with other information. They were intercepting that traffic and replacing the IP that they thought was legit with a fake IP that went to their stuff, which meant that they could take something like the 5K player update request that was looking for a file called YouTube-DL and then push a rat from their own command and control servers to you. Yeah. And that's a pretty interesting concept because, pretty much everything is checking for updates all the time. So if you were an attacker and you knew that an update may become available shortly, or even if you didn't, I guess you could trigger an update process and then target systems that hadn't updated yet. So if that automatic update started, a lot of people would update, but maybe some people were offline, maybe they weren't updating, and then boom. So yeah, now I'm kind of scared. I think my Google updates about 3 times a day. Every time you start Chrome, it basically needs another update. But anyway, after they compromised all these systems, they installed a Google Chrome extension called Reload Text, which basically allowed them to harvest browser cookies and email data. Yeah, so that's pretty scary stuff. So we're probably going to have to start looking into more heavily DNS validation. I know we've talked about that a lot, but that's going to be a big deal, right? Because if you aren't sure your DNS is valid, what are you going to do? Speaking of Google Chrome, Chrome is encouraging users of uBlock Origin to switch to other ad blockers before Chrome disables Manifest v2 extensions. So this is something I've been talking about for a while. To replace Manifest v2 with Manifest v3, and uBlock Origin is what we all call an ad blocker. So that tries to prevent things from popping up on your screen, especially nasty things. Google deprecated support for Manifest v2 to move to v3 quite a while ago, actually. But you know how deprecated things are; they just stand around. So uBlock Origin will no longer work if they move to v3. So if v2 stops functioning, uBlock Origin will also stop functioning. They did say that UBO Lite is a pared down version, which has the best chance of converting all the filter lists in UBO currently into Manifest v3 compliant approaches. The link on the Chrome Web Store site advises you to switch to UBO Lite, AdBlock Plus, Stans, Adblocker, or Ghostery. So those are all different ad blockers that people use. And at this point, all the MV2 extensions on the Chrome Store have warnings, and those warnings have been there since the 3rd of June, but you may not have seen them if you haven't been checking that kind of stuff. All those extensions are being disabled in the next month or so. So they've not really made like a solid date, but they said pretty soon the deprecation is going to end and the termination is going to begin. So now you can apparently still enable MV2 extensions, but eventually, and you don't know when, they will no longer be available. So deprecation. Enterprises which use extension Manifest v2 availability policy will be exempt from this deprecation until June of 2025, so about a year from now. But it is coming, so you may want to start planning now so you can get out ahead of the game. Manifest v3 did roll out in 2020, but it has been difficult to implement for a lot of people apparently. But it's more secure, so keep that in mind. 1/5 of enterprise IT admins said that they have been the target of a state-sponsored attack, according to a survey that was just released from HP Wolf. The survey was based on 800 respondents in the IT field, and 19% of them said they have been a target of an attack. Now, of course, that's basically assuming they reported it and also assuming they knew what it was. So this is people who actually identified a state-sponsored attack. The state-sponsored groups are primarily trying to steal data and extract money, or both, as well as other things here and there. 20% of the companies reporting an attack were based in the United States. The report noted that many times the state-sponsored groups were trying to get malicious code running in the lower rings to be able to avoid detection by antivirus or being stopped by reboots, and that they were trying to get all this into supply chain code. Now, if you follow us, you follow Pulse Security Weekly, or you follow security, you're probably familiar with these kind of low-ring attacks, because these basically would allow attackers to get into PCs or servers at the firmware level, as Paul talks about a lot on Pulse Security Weekly. I mean, that stuff is doomsday, right? Because if you've ever dealt with firmware attacks or UEFI type malware, you know that, you go, oh, I'll reboot my system. Oh, I'll run anti-malware. And none of that works because it's sitting below that level. And, if they have you at the UEFI or the low ring levels of the kernel, you're done. I mean, there's not a lot you're going to be able to do from that besides scorch the earth and replace the motherboard. So, those are fun, and be careful out there. Rhysida is a ransomware gang that claimed responsibility for an attack last month on the city of Columbus, Ohio, in the United States. Now, the city of Columbus said they were well prepared for this and were able to rescue their data from being encrypted because the IT group quickly disconnected all the systems when they discovered the attack on the 18th of July. That's impressive. Most cities I've dealt with and consulted for, basically, I went in fact, the last time I was talking with a city, they were like, I was like, do you have a network diagram and a data flow diagram? And they were like, yeah, sure. And they pulled out a piece of paper that was dated like 1995. And I was like, who is this guy, Rob? And they were like, oh yeah, he retired in 98. And I think he died in 2001. And you're like, okay, so this hasn't been updated in like 20 years. And they were like, it could be longer than that. I think Rob just copied the one that Jay did. He's been dead since the 80s, and you're like, yeah, I see you have a PDP-11 mini computer or a mainframe computer on your diagram here. Is that still active? And they're like, we don't even know what that is. And it wasn't Southwest Airlines. But I mean, at the end of the day, that's problematic. But Rhysida is attempting to auction off 6.5 terabytes of data they claim to have stolen during this attack, because this is a modern ransomware approach, right? So they first exfiltrate everything and then they start encrypting. The attacker has not been named by the city of Columbus, but Rhysida updated their dark website last week and put up an auction notice for databases, internal logins, passwords of employees, along with a full dump of servers with emergency applications of the city and access to the city's video cameras. So yeah, don't know what you might see in all that, but it probably would be interesting. The gang was demanding 30 Bitcoin, which as of today is about $1.7 million, because yesterday was kind of a rough day. But they have said that the auction is going to run for 7 days. Rhysida previously claimed to have sold the data of the Chicago Lurie Children's Hospital for $3.4 million back in March. Wow. And they say crime doesn't pay. A report from the Center for Internet Security published in January claimed that malware attacks on state and local governments in the United States increased 148%, and ransomware attacks against governments rose 51% between 2022 and 2023. So they're coming for you. And city, state, and local governments often have very, very poor, support for all this stuff and low budgets and so forth. Abnormal Security reported a 360% spike in attempts against government offices between May of 2023 and May of 2024. So a massive increase. And they said that the demands for ransom have been growing very, very high, very fast. The average demand was $4.6 million for local governments as of early 2024, according to Sophos. So have a plan. You might want to save some money up for a rainy day in case, we advise people not to pay ransoms. The FBI says don't pay ransoms. But even if you don't pay the ransom and you have a good plan in place, they may still start auctioning off your data. So think about what will happen when that happens to you, because it probably will. I mean, I hate to tell you, but it probably will happen, and you need to have a plan in place. So, like today, I love a good keylogger, let me tell you. And some of the earliest things I ever wrote in this realm were I wanted to log what people were typing on the mainframe keyboard so that I could see if they were trying to cause problems. So I had something called the S list. We'll leave it to you. And my S list was users at the university that I worked for as an undergraduate student who were typing things that I knew to be problematic. And I wanted to categorize users into amateurs, possible hacker type people, and things like that. So I knew who I could put on my list. Now, I know, something privacy, something Fourth Amendment, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. It was my mainframe, and I was a living God walking the virtual earth, punishing the wicked and all those who oppose my will or cut me off in the parking lot. Wait, sorry, did I say any of that out loud? No, I'm sorry. I was just thinking to myself.
You're not supposed to challenge the people cutting you off in the parking lot, okay?
I did, and they paid dearly. There was a professor who was always at priority level 99, baby. His stuff ran so slow, it's probably still waiting to run. But anyway, FortiGuard was warning about an increase in snake keylogger infections. And like all good keyloggers, Snake records what you're typing as you log into things. and then it extracts your username and password because it's pretty easy, right? When you get it at that level, it can take screenshots of what you're working on to spy on what you're doing or sites you're going to, or maybe even what you typed in. And then it uploads all that info to the command and control, like any good keylogger. I mean, that's the way mine worked. But I didn't have to upload it because there was no such thing as a cloud. It just uploaded it into my account. But FortiGuard, they probably wait for people to say that. FortiGuard said that there were hundreds of zero-day detection hits on this, which means that the keylogger was contacting outside servers, but it was not yet in the database of known malware, so it must be a new variant of Snake. Now, that new signature got added to the FortiGuard on 31st of July, so just recently. Snake has been around a while, and it used to be called Kraken, but it's a .NET-based tool, and it was originally sold on a subscription basis in Russian crime forums. Now, it first surfaced in November of 2020, and it was found by Splunk, so they were the first people that reported on Kraken. But keyloggers are typically spread by, they didn't report on how this was being spread, but they're usually phishing. And there was no, Forta news or anything like that about it, but it seems like it's pretty typical. And being .NET based, guess what? It goes after Windows machines. So if you have Windows machines, and I bet you might have some, even if you say you don't, because I've had that from cities and states and towns going, no, there's nothing here but Linux. And then you go in and it's like, what are these things? And they're like, I don't know what those are. And you turn them on and go, well, this is like Windows Server 2012. And they're like, oh, I guess we must have set that up sometime. So it's always a good time. Sorry, really great city, state, and town people, but not all of you are. But it's always a good time to remind your users not to click links, really. It's also a good time not to send out links. I keep getting these texts from somebody going, you owe us money. And I'm like, I don't know if I owe you money or not, but I'm not clicking this link. So, you're just going to have to suck it up and do something different because I'm not clicking on any shortened links. Delta Airlines, who struggled the most with the CrowdStrike meltdown, and famously so, and had to ground thousands of flights, not just for a little while, but for days and days and days and days and days, and then basically offered all the people stranded in airports all over the world a $5 gift card for a breakfast at Denny's, said they didn't, actually they didn't even do that. They basically offered you something like like 1,000 frequent flyer miles or something like that. Yeah, I mean, it was really lame what they did, Delta. I'm sorry. I've been abused by airlines all over the world, and I'm telling you, this one was pretty lame. But Delta has threatened to sue CrowdStrike for the extended delays they suffered. Now, that kind of sounds obvious initially, but CrowdStrike fired back, and they said, now look, we're going to countersue you because we were not responsible for you making bad IT decisions, refusing our assistance, and so forth. So it's basically a nerd slap fight. The letter that CrowdStrike sent out on Sunday said that Delta had created, quote, a misleading narrative that CrowdStrike was grossly negligent. Delta has said that the incident cost them $500 million. Well, I can believe that. CrowdStrike went on in their letter and they said that if Delta pursues this action, Delta will have to explain why it took them so much longer than everyone else to get back online. CrowdStrike said that Delta's leadership had ignored and rejected repeated offers for help. Supposedly their CEO contacted Delta's CEO. The two sat down in some creepy club somewhere in Manhattan, had a few drinks, smoked a few $500 cigars, probably went out on the yacht for a while, then came back and decided they didn't like each other. But Delta said that all that CrowdStrike had offered them was a bunch of free consulting advice. Well, gee, Delta, it seemed to me like at that point in time, you might want to take any advice you could get. But hey, whatever, what do I know? But at least all the lawyers are going to get paid in about 7 to 14 years. But lawyers are patient. Customers who were stranded in Heathrow for 36 straight hours, not so much. But they might give you a discount coupon for, I don't know, the local airport sushi bar or something. But probably not. TikTok. We all love TikTok. TikTok removed a reward program in European countries yesterday since the EU has said that the feature made the social media app, quote, addictive. The feature's on TikTok Lite, and it's a program that awards reward points for watching videos, liking posts, and inviting others into the app. Now, you can apparently use these points for Amazon vouchers and TikTok coins. Now, the EU said that the program failed to report potential risks of using the rewards program as part of the EU Digital Services Act, which was passed last year and was designed to protect people from illegal content, targeted ads, unwanted algorithms driving your feed, disinformation, all the stuff that we get so much of here in the United States because we don't have any laws like this. TikTok said they suspended the program in late April after these accusations, and then they disabled it for good on Monday in the EU. You're still welcome to get involved in this here in the US, of course. But basically, the claim from the EU was that the program could be, quote, as toxic and addictive as cigarettes. Okay. And it said it puts children at, quote, risk of mental health problems. Now, TikTok Lite said they require users to be 18 years or older to enroll in the program, but they also said I had to be 18 years or older to buy double vodka at the liquor store, too. Hey, kids, the drinking age was 18 back then. But a separate lawsuit was also filed against Meta on Monday that was seeking damages against Meta for making Instagram addicting to teens, with a 13-year-old girl seeking $5 billion in damages. $5 billion with a B. I mean, this person must have looked at a lot of Instagram posts, but they said that that it encouraged teens to seek likes, that this was addictive. This kind of stuff just, I don't know. I'm like, come on. But I mean, if people are going to get addicted, they're going to get addicted to something. So, I don't have a lot of, I don't know. It drives me crazy. Well, I love to sail forbidden seas and land on barbarous coasts because I get to meet people like Josh Marpet. Hi, Josh.
Hey, Dr. Doug. Hang on, I got to check my TikTok a couple more times and Instagram
you
too.
Might want to.
Very important.
You need those points because you can get those TikTok coins. You can give me your TikTok coins. Or give me all your TikTok coins.
Alexa, give me your TikTok coins.
Oh God, don't say that. Yeah.
So, I mean, addictive behavior is not just at TikTok or Instagram. It's also in the consulting practices of the world, because we're addicted to FUD. We've been addicted to land and expand. We've been addicted to, get the money out of them in any way, shape, or form possible. And in some consulting practices, they're using some of the latest double-barreled blasts of hype to get money out of clients anyway. And those double-barreled blasts of hype are AI and quantum. Now, let's be clear. I'm not stating that they're pure hype. There's nothing there. There's a lot there. Okay. Quantum computing is a fascinating branch of mathematics and physics. I really enjoy talking about it and discussing it, learning about it. I also really enjoy talking about generative AI, large language models, agglomerated nesting, all the different types of AI, because computer vision, natural language processing, there's 100 different types of AI. It's not all Chat GPT and whatever else. And is it worthwhile for us to talk about how you can use these things? Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. Again, fascinating stuff. Look, our entire concept of asymmetric cryptography is based on the fact that I don't want to have to drive to Dr. Doug's house to exchange a key with him so that we can talk in an encrypted fashion. That's what asymmetric cryptography was invented for. Okay? But if I could do quantum entanglement, then it's amazing, but I still have to get the photons close enough to each other to entangle before I separate them. And guess what? I might as well do that at Dr. Doug's house, right? He's invited me over. I've lived there for 6 or 7 years. No,
that's all cool. Yeah,
only 3 or 4 years. He's a good host, but he's not that good of a host. Remember, hackers, anybody's welcome at Dr. Doug's house. Okay, just to be clear.
Especially if you bring some quantum entanglement with you.
Well, if you bring some quantum cigars, some quantum whiskey, maybe a smoked haunch of some roast beast, he's happy to have you.
I am now AI enabled.
Yeah, hell yeah. Well, you're eye enabled. Okay, AI would come with your phone because that's your artificial cortex, your external cortex. Now, in all seriousness, I'm a big fan of Gen AI and a big fan of using these machine learning subroutines in various interesting ways. We're learning more and more interesting ways to use them just about every day. That's fantastic. I'm all for it. How about quantum computing? How about quantum decryption or quantum supremacy, as some people have called it? It's the quantum racists. I don't know, but the supremacy just makes me ig out. It gives me the ick. But anyway, quantum decryption, quantum computing, again, fascinating stuff. Is this something you have to worry about now? Yes. if you're a massive company with incredible trade secret, insane amounts of PII and IP and all that kind of stuff, should you, individual person, Dr. Doug, Josh, the guys behind the cameras, should we worry about it as individuals? It's probably not as big of a deal for us to worry about quantum. Now, AI and deepfake, there are legitimate reasons on a personal level to worry about it. Okay, there are scams going around that are enabled by AI and performed by deepfake systems. There's the famous scam of, hey, hello, 3 a.m. Grandpa, I'm being held in a Spanish prison. Please send $1,000 wire to this address. You do it. Oh my God, prison, bad. Next morning you call them. Are you okay? Did you get out okay? What are you talking about? It was a deepfake. But AI enabled it because AI was used to harvest all of the pieces to create the deepfake, to target your grandchild, to enable and harvest their voice and their vision and how they speak and their patterns of speech, and to help the deepfake system create a realistic sort of persona of her. And that's terrifying. So these are reasons that we as individuals should be careful about AI or understand what's going on. But it doesn't mean we have to be scared. It means we have to be cautious. Just the same way as we test locks. I have lockpick sets to test locks because I have to know what a good lock is in order to select a good lock for my house, for my data center, for my server rack, for my whatever. All right? So it's an understanding, not a scare. And I dislike when people are like, oh, you should be scared. Because look, when I was young, because I'm old, not as old as Dr. Doug, but I'm old. Actually, I think we're about the same age. I'm not as old as Jeff Mann. Okay, that man, like, rocks were soft and dirt was young. All right, when he was at the NSA. But you like that one, huh? But when I was young, it was all about FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. We scared our leaders in order to get the budget out of them, to get the money to buy things and do things. These days, if you use FUD, you're going to get laughed out of the room. It just isn't cool. And honestly, I never liked using it, and I didn't use it. I refused to use it. I wanted to use statistics. I wanted to use numbers. I wanted to use math because I'm a geek. And that's what we used, or should have used, and did use, to get budget out of people to understand what our environment is and how to solve it. But right now, what we're talking about is simple. Should you be worried about post-quantum quantum decryption, post-quantum cryptography, and everything else? No. Should you be conscious of it? Yes, of course. It's a topic that's interesting, and it's a topic that we should know about, but we don't necessarily have to worry about it unless, again, we are one of those biggest companies with enough data that is valuable for 10 years after it's released that it matters that much. So take a deep breath, everybody. And remember, consultants do these things because they're paid to. Be careful, but just be aware.
I want to be paid to do evil things.
You work for Ernst & Young? I mean,
oh, well, there goes that sponsorship.
Look, any of the big four have wonderful people that work there and some horrible people that work there. Most of the big four actually do very good work. They just charge a lot of money for it.
They do charge a lot of money, but they always outbid me and got the job anyway. They had better T-shirts. I literally lost a really good contract once because I bid. I think I bid like $5,000 for this contract because I was going to do this stuff with open source, and the bid that beat me was like $575,000. And the director that was approving this thing basically said, "Yours is so cheap, we feel like it won't be able to do the job." And I was like, I could charge more. Like I was going to bid $501,000. Yeah, sorry. Did that just say 5,000? It was supposed to say 5 million. It must be the best product out there. But hey, that's the way it goes, right? I also got outbid once because the guy was the person's nephew. When the CEO's nephew bids, and it's like, wow, their bid is like a lot more than mine. And they're like, yeah, but he's the nephew of the CEO. What are you going to do? And I was like, yeah, okay, have fun. Thank you, Josh. And finally, One of the things I think is so silly in the modern age is that we have to have a printed piece of paper with our car registration. It's literally like a laser printed page in Rhode Island. Like that means anything. It's just so stupid because I have to have it, right? And when I get pulled over, which happens every now, not that I ever speed, but if I get pulled over, I have to give the officer this printed piece of paper that I could have made with anything, anywhere, and then they go look it up on the computer in their patrol car, right? So if they're looking it up anyway, couldn't they have just looked it up and saved me from having to have a glove box full of old paper that I have to dig through when I've been pulled over? And the guy's asking me questions like, what kind of cigar is that? It's the one. Yeah, no, we're not going to get into that. But, I just really, you have to have a copy of an insurance form, which they look up. They take it and they go look it up to see if it's valid because it can all be fake so easy. So I'm like, why do I need these things? Couldn't you just you got to look it up anyway. Why don't you just look it up? Why do I need to be responsible for having this stuff? And then, of course, there's this silly laminated card with an out-of-date photo from like 1998. An out-of-date weight. My weight's gone down. Thank you very much. An out-of-date. Yeah, I know. The last time I got pulled over, the guy was like, I don't think your weight's correct. I was like, I think it says 175 pounds because that's what I weighed when I was like 16 years old. But, all that stuff. And my address was wrong. And I got harassed by a police officer saying, your address is incorrect. And I said, yeah, we moved. And he said, yeah, you're supposed to go to the DMV immediately and get that changed. And I said, no, I called them. And they said they didn't do that until my license expired. And he said, well, they told you wrong. I could write you up for that. And I said, well, I'm sorry. I called them. And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, am I about to get beat here? But I called the DMV again. And then once again, they said, no, we don't do that. You don't get a new license until your license expires. And I said, well, that's not what the police told me. And then they said, well, what was the officer's name? And I said, well, I have it right here on this citation for $500. And then they said, well, yeah, if you want to come in and fill out a complaint. And I'm like, oh my God. And I think not. I'll just, go to jail over this, like 10 years in prison. But I don't know. Anyway, well, California is moving on, apparently. And a report by Mac Rumors on Monday said that California listed the Apple Wallet as an upcoming state, whatever. And they're going to basically let you put your credentials in your Apple Wallet. So I hope your phone's charged. But or you don't pull your phone out when the officer's walking up the car either. Like, let me tell you, just keep your hands on the steering wheel. I got good advice for you. Keep your hands on the steering wheel because it's really scary to walk up on cars that are sitting on the side of the road at night. So just make sure. And then once the officer can see you, then you can start reaching for things. But you can apparently in California already download an official DMV app. Well, that sounds sketchy, which would store all your credentials. But this new one would put your California driver's license and information in your Apple Wallet. So then technically telling the liquor store that you left your ID in the car might not work any longer. All those good old fake ID tricks that everybody knew when I was a kid. But hopefully that means the rest of the country will eventually move on to this model. Rhode Island about 5 years after that. But at least it would mean someday maybe I can quit carrying around this silly laminated card and these laser printed car registrations. Yeah, exactly. But that is the news. Thank you, Josh. And I will see you next time on the Security Weekly News.